They called it temporary. My childhood bedroom becoming my sister's while I was relocated to the unfinished attic with its slanted ceiling and exposed insulation. What started as a 2-week arrangement lasted 6 years, reinforcing daily that I was the least valued member of our family. But life has a way of balancing accounts. Today, I hold the deed to the very house where I once wasn't even worthy of a proper bedroom. This isn't a story about revenge. It's about the unexpected journey from attic dweller to property owner, and how sometimes the person they underestimate ends up being the only one they can rely on. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I was 15 when my world shifted on its axis. Until then, my life had followed a predictable suburban rhythm in Lakeside Heights, a middle-class neighborhood of Westwood where property values remained steady and ambitions modest. Our house, a 4-bedroom colonial with fading blue trim and a sprawling oak in the front yard, had been home since I was 3. My bedroom, while not spacious, had been my sanctuary. The walls, painted a soft sage green after much negotiation with my parents, were covered with academic certificates, dog-eared posters of scientists rather than pop stars, and a meticulously maintained calendar tracking my progress toward college applications still 3 years distant. Jessica Chen, practical, methodical, invisible. That's how I'd describe myself then. The daughter who caused no trouble, maintained a 4.2 GPA, and helped with dinner without being asked. My sister, Olivia, younger by 2 years, operated differently. Where I was reserved, she was effervescent. Where I calculated, she captivated. My strengths manifested in test scores and quiet reliability, hers in social currency and the ability to command attention in any room. Our parents, Richard, an insurance claims adjuster with perpetually worried eyes, and Diane, an elementary school administrator with unfulfilled artistic aspirations, responded predictably to these differences. The first tremor in our family's tectonic plates came during a typical Tuesday dinner. My father cleared his throat with unusual formality after we'd finished our pot roast. "We need to discuss a new arrangement," he announced, eyes fixed somewhere above my head. "Your grandmother's hip replacement didn't go as planned. She needs closer supervision during recovery." My mother nodded emphatically. "The doctors say 6 to 8 weeks. We can't expect her to navigate stairs at her condo, and the assisted living facilities have waiting lists." I glanced at my sister, who was texting under the table, only half listening to this family development. "She'll need a proper bedroom," my father continued. "We've discussed it, and the most logical solution is for her to take Jessica's room since it's on the main floor." The silverware in my hand suddenly felt heavier. "Where would I sleep?" I asked, though a sinking feeling suggested I already knew. My mother's smile strained with practiced sympathy. "We thought you could use the attic space, just temporarily. You're so adaptable, Jessica, and it would be a tremendous help to the family." The attic. Not the finished basement with its entertainment system where guests regularly stayed. Not my parents' home office that was used perhaps twice monthly. Not even Olivia's room, which was actually larger than mine. The attic, with its pull-down, ladder, exposed insulation, and extreme temperature fluctuations. "Why not Olivia's room?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice neutral. My sister's head snapped up from her phone. "Are you serious? I have friends over all the time. I need my space." "And you have debate team meetings and study groups," my mother interjected smoothly. "The attic would give you privacy for those. We'll make it comfortable, we promise." That weekend became a blur of reluctant reorganization. My belongings migrated upward, books, clothes, desk, and twin bed all awkwardly arranged around the attic's architectural challenges. My father installed a portable air conditioning unit that made a valiant but insufficient effort against the summer heat. My mother hung curtains over the single dormer window and laid down area rugs over the rough plywood flooring. They spoke encouragingly about cozy and private, while I silently catalogued cramped and isolated. Grandmother May arrived the following Tuesday, moving into my transformed bedroom with her collection of ceramic figurines and medical equipment. A kind woman with papery skin and endless stories of her youth in Taiwan, she viewed the arrangement with obvious discomfort. "This is too much, Jessica," she whispered when my parents left us alone. "Your room is too good for an old woman." I squeezed her papery hand. "It's temporary, grandmother. The important thing is for you to heal properly." 8 weeks came and went. Grandmother May's recovery progressed slowly, complicated by unexpected infections and mobility challenges. By month 3, new furniture had replaced my own in her room. A hospital-grade bed, specialized seating, an antique dresser moved from her condo. My temporary displacement was calcifying into permanence without explicit acknowledgement. When I raised the question over breakfast one morning, "When will grandmother be well enough to return home?" the response crystallized my new reality. "We've been meaning to discuss this," my father said, exchanging glances with my mother. "The doctors believe your grandmother would benefit from continued family support. And frankly, we're concerned about her living alone again." "We're making it permanent," my mother added, as if this clarification were helpful. "But we'll invest in making the attic more comfortable for you. Maybe some built-in bookshelves?" That night, I lay on my bed beneath the sloped ceiling, listening to the house settle beneath me. From this position, I could hear fragments of family life continuing without me, the television's muffled dialogue, Olivia's laughter during phone conversations, the dishwasher's mechanical rhythm. Physical elevation had somehow translated into familial distance, as if my removal from the main living space had gradually erased me from essential consideration. The promised attic improvements materialized in half measures. Wall insulation was installed but left uncovered with drywall due to budget constraints. The portable air conditioner was replaced with a more efficient model, but nothing could be done about the inadequate heating during winter months beyond space heaters that made me nervous to use while sleeping. My father built a single bookshelf that couldn't accommodate a quarter of my collection. Meanwhile, Olivia's room underwent a complete renovation. "Since we're making changes anyway," my mother had reasoned, "and Olivia's entering high school next year. New furniture, professional painting, even hardwood flooring replacing the outdated carpet, all justified as necessary updates, while my attic accommodations remained perpetually in progress." The inescapable message in these disparate investments wasn't subtle. Olivia merited resources. I was expected to manage with less. The pattern extended beyond physical spaces. When both of us needed graphing calculators for advanced math courses, Olivia received the premium model. I was told to use the school's loaners. When driver's education became relevant, Olivia was enrolled in private lessons. I was taught by my increasingly impatient father in empty parking lots. "Your sister needs more support," my mother explained during one of my rare objections. "You've always been naturally capable, Jessica. You should be proud of your self-sufficiency." Self-sufficiency became my armor and prison simultaneously. I excelled academically not just from natural inclination, but from the understanding that scholarships represented my only viable path to independence. I worked weekends at the local library, saving every dollar toward an escape fund while watching my sister receive an allowance for maintaining B- averages. I cultivated relationships with teachers who could write glowing college recommendations, recognizing my parents' evaluations would be tepid at best. Grandmother May provided unexpected solace during this period. Though technically the catalyst for my displacement, she became my most consistent ally. During afternoons when we found ourselves alone in the house, my parents at work, Olivia at various social engagements, she invited me to sit in what had once been my bedroom, sharing stories of her own youth and disrupted dreams. My father believed daughters were temporary family members, she confided once, her English shifting occasionally into Mandarin when memories intensified. Everything went to preparing my brothers for their futures. Girls would marry into other families, so why invest? This thinking follows generations like a shadow. She never explicitly connected these cultural observations to my current circumstances, but the parallel hung between us, acknowledged through shared glances rather than direct commentary. Sometimes she pressed red envelopes into my hands. Small, cash gifts I knew came from her modest pension. "For your future," she would say simply. I stashed these funds separate from my regular savings, somehow understanding they represented something more sacred than everyday expenses. During my junior year of high school, I developed a methodical approach to my eventual liberation. College. Applications were researched with military precision, focusing on institutions offering substantial financial aid and located at least 300 miles from Westwood. Close enough for occasional visits to Grandmother May, distant enough to require genuine effort from my parents. I targeted programs with early admission options, recognizing that confirmed acceptance by December would make my final semester at home more tolerable. The guidance counselor's eyes widened when reviewing my application list. "These are extremely competitive schools, Jessica," she cautioned. "You might want to include some safer options." "I've analyzed the acceptance patterns for the past 5 years," I replied, sliding a spreadsheet across her desk. "Based on my academic profile and extracurriculars, I calculate a 72% probability of acceptance to at least 3 of my top choices, assuming my essays meet expected quality standards." She studied my methodical analysis with a mixture of impression and concern. "Your academic qualifications are exceptional, but admissions officers also look for passion, personality, unique perspectives." "I understand statistical outliers," I assured her, already drafting essays that would strategically reveal controlled glimpses of my personal circumstances without descending into self-pity. By November, I had submitted 12 applications, each meticulously customized for institutional preferences. The first acceptance arrived on a Thursday afternoon in December. Stanford University with a substantial scholarship covering 85% of tuition and housing. I stood in the driveway clutching the thick envelope, reading and rereading the congratulatory language through vision blurred by unexpected tears. The magnitude of this achievement, this escape, momentarily overwhelmed my carefully maintained composure. That evening, I placed the acceptance letter on the dinner table before serving the lasagna I'd prepared. My father picked it up casually between bites. "Stanford," he read aloud, tone neutral. "That's in California." My mother glanced up from her plate. "California is expensive, Jessica. Have you considered State University? Many of their graduates go on to very stable careers." "I've received an academic scholarship," I explained, indicating the financial details. "My portion would be approximately $7,000 annually, which I can manage through work study and summer employment." "7,000 is still significant," my father countered, "and plane tickets for holidays would add up quickly." Olivia examined the letterhead with newfound interest. "Stanford is really hard to get into. How did you manage that from public school?" Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The implicit suggestion that my achievement resulted from statistical anomaly rather than earned merit crystallized something within me. As additional acceptances arrived, Yale, Columbia, Northwestern, my parents' responses remained similarly tepid, emphasizing practical concerns rather than celebrating unprecedented accomplishment. Only Grandmother May offered genuine congratulations, clasping my hands in her fragile grip when we found ourselves momentarily alone. "You have done what I could not," she whispered fiercely. "You found your own path forward." That spring, as my senior year accelerated toward conclusion, I overheard a conversation that permanently altered my perception of family dynamics. I had climbed halfway down the attic ladder, pausing when I heard my name mentioned in the kitchen, below. "We should discuss Jessica's college fund," my father was saying. "Stanford will expect the first payment by July." My mother's response came after a brief hesitation. "There isn't much in Jessica's account. We had to redirect most of those funds for Olivia's Riverdale Academy tuition." Riverdale Academy, the prestigious private school where Olivia had transferred, for her junior year after claiming public education was stifling her potential. The shift had been presented as financially manageable through careful budgeting. Now I understood the true nature of that budget adjustment. "Jessica has her scholarship," my father reasoned, "and she's always been resourceful. Olivia needs more structured support to succeed." "Exactly," my mother agreed. "Jessica would manage regardless. It's Olivia who needs the advantages we can provide." I retreated silently up the ladder, a strange calm replacing what should have been outrage. The revelation wasn't shocking, merely confirmation of patterns I'd observed for years. They had redirected my college fund, money presumably set aside, for my future, toward Olivia's high school experience. The inequity wasn't accidental or circumstantial, but deliberately engineered. That night, I made two decisions that would ultimately alter the trajectory of not just my life, but my entire family's future. First, I would accept Stanford's offer without expecting any parental contribution, taking additional loans if necessary. Second, I would maintain precisely enough contact with my family to check on Grandmother May's well-being, but otherwise begin the psychological process of emancipation. The remaining months before graduation passed with mechanical detachment. I maintained academic excellence through habit rather than ambition, worked additional shifts at the library, and responded to my parents' logistical questions about Stanford with minimal information. The growing distance wasn't dramatic enough to trigger confrontation, more a gradual receding, like an outgoing tide, noticeable only through accumulated absence. My graduation ceremony fell on an uncharacteristically cool June morning. From the alphabetically organized rows of seniors, I watched my parents and Olivia arrive 15 minutes late, rushing to find seats while the principal was already midway through opening remarks. Grandmother May wasn't present. Her mobility had declined significantly that spring, making the overcrowded sports field inaccessible for her walker. When they called my name as class valedictorian, the applause felt distant, belonging to a reality I was already leaving behind. My prepared speech, carefully generic to avoid personal revelations, received polite appreciation from assembled families. Afterward, during the traditional cap-tossing celebration, I remained seated, watching my classmates' exuberance with anthropological detachment. "We should celebrate," my father announced as we navigated the parking lot afterward. "Your mother has reservations at Castellanos." Castellanos, the upscale Italian restaurant reserved exclusively for Olivia's achievements. Dance recitals, tennis tournaments, student council election. Its appearance now, for my graduation, struck me as performative rather than sincere. "Actually," I responded, "I promised to help the library staff with summer reading program set up this afternoon. Perhaps another time." My mother's disappointment seemed genuine, if superficial. "But we've made reservations, Jessica. Surely they can manage without you for one day." "I gave my word," I replied simply, the phrase carrying weight beyond its literal meaning. I had indeed committed to the library that afternoon, but more significantly, I had given my word to myself about the boundaries now necessary for my survival. My father drove me directly to the library, the car thick with unspoken tensions. As I reached for the door handle, he cleared his throat. "We are proud of you, Jessica," he said, the words sounding rehearsed. "You've always been so independent." I paused, one foot already on the pavement. "Yes," I agreed. "I have been." That evening, I began methodically packing my attic room, sorting possessions into categories: essential for Stanford, useful for future apartment, disposable. The process felt less like preparation for college than strategic evacuation, identifying and preserving only what would serve the person I was becoming, rather than commemorating who I had been forced to be. 3 weeks later, I loaded 2 suitcases and a laptop bag into the airport shuttle I'd arranged with my own money, declining my parents' offer to drive me to the terminal. My final conversation with Grandmother May had occurred the previous evening, away from parental oversight. "I will write to you," I promised, holding her increasingly frail hands. "And I will keep your secrets," she responded with unexpected fierceness. From beneath her pillow, she withdrew a final red envelope significantly thicker than previous gifts. "This is everything I have saved since coming to live here. Use it wisely when the time is right." My departure from the family driveway was anticlimactic. Brief hugs, generic well wishes, Olivia's distracted wave as she simultaneously texted friends. No one cried. No dramatic proclamations punctuated the moment. Just a mechanical separation of components that had never properly functioned as a unit. As the shuttle pulled away, I watched the house recede through the rear window, the colonial facade with its fading blue trim, the sprawling oak dropping early August leaves, the small dormer window of the attic barely visible from this angle. I felt no attachment to the structure itself, only a dull recognition that it represented a chapter conclusively ending. What I couldn't possibly know then, watching my childhood home disappear around the corner, was that circumstances would eventually bring me back. Not as the overlooked daughter relegated to attic accommodations, but as the sole person capable of determining the property's fate and, by extension, my family's future security. The complex journey between these points would require 8 years, multiple crises, unexpected allies, and painful reckonings with fundamental questions of obligation and worth. But on that August morning, flying west toward Stanford and a self-determined future, all I felt was the lightness of unshackling from expectations I'd never be able to meet. Being less so, my sister could be more. Requiring less so, others could have abundance. Occupying less space so others could expand. The attic was behind me. Whatever space I occupied next would be earned through my own merit and defended by my own boundaries. Stanford University materialized like a mirage. Terracotta rooftops and sandstone arcades basking in California sunshine. So different from Westwood's perpetual cloud cover. My dormitory, Florence Moore Hall, housed 62 freshmen in single and double rooms with proper windows, functioning heating, and communal spaces designed for academic collaboration. After years in the attic, this standardized housing felt luxurious beyond measure. My roommate, Zoe Michaels, arrived with parents who spent 4 hours arranging her side of our shared space, hanging fairy lights, positioning throw pillows, and repeatedly hugging her with performative distress about their impending separation. I observed this elaborate ritual while efficiently unpacking my 2 suitcases, arranging textbooks by subject, and setting up the secondhand laptop I'd purchased with library earnings. When Zoe's parents finally departed, leaving behind homemade cookies and promises of care packages, she turned to me with curious eyes. "Are your parents coming later?" she asked, already reaching for her phone to coordinate potential family dinners. "No," I replied simply. "They couldn't make the trip." The statement, while technically untrue, preserved essential privacy while avoiding unnecessary explanation. My parents hadn't been explicitly uninvited. I had simply provided minimal information about move-in logistics, suggesting the cross-country journey would be burdensome given their work schedules. They had accepted this reasoning with suspicious readiness, offering instead to contribute toward winter break airfare, an offer I politely declined, already knowing I would seek on-campus housing during university closures. Freshman orientation unfolded with programmed enthusiasm. Campus tours, department mixers, carefully orchestrated social events designed to replace established support systems with institutional community. I participated with methodical dedication rather than emotional investment, recognizing these connections as necessary infrastructure for my academic success. When residence advisors organized floor meetings with icebreaker activities, I contributed sufficiently to avoid concerning attention without revealing anything substantial about my background. The academic environment proved immediately validating. In advanced calculus, Professor Harrington returned my first examination with raised eyebrows. "Impressive work, Ms. Chen. Your proof construction shows unusual maturity." In comparative political systems, my analysis of democratic erosion patterns earned written praise. Remarkably nuanced perspective for a freshman. Have you considered the international relations track? These acknowledgments, based on measurable performance rather than arbitrary preference, reinforced my conviction that academic meritocracy would reward qualities undervalued in my family context. My predetermined major, economics with computer science concentration, reflected practical calculation rather than passionate interest. Market analysis had identified these intersecting fields as offering optimal return on educational investment through high initial salaries and career sustainability. My genuine intellectual curiosities, comparative literature, theoretical physics, cultural anthropology, were relegated to elective slots. Academic indulgences permitted only after primary requirements were satisfied. Financial management dominated my peripheral attention. The scholarship covering 85% of expenses left approximately $12,000 annually unaddressed, a sum I tackled through multiple strategies. Work-study placement in the university library provided hourly income alongside advantageous proximity to academic resources. A research assistantship with Professor Harrington added modest stipend for manageable hours. Remote freelance work editing college application essays generated irregular but significant revenue. Through disciplined budget adherence, I gradually accumulated modest savings despite ongoing educational expenses. Communication with my family established predictable patterns. Sunday evening phone calls maintained performative connection, brief exchanges of sanitized information lasting precisely 12 to 15 minutes before study commitments necessitated conclusion. My parents rarely initiated contact independently, apparently satisfied with these scheduled interactions. Olivia occasionally sent impulsive texts, usually preceding requests for assistance with college entrance essays or mathematics homework. Only Grandmother May received genuine communication through weekly letters containing detailed descriptions of campus life and academic progress. Her responses, handwritten in increasingly shaky script, provided my only authentic family connection. "Your molecular biology professor sounds wonderfully eccentric," she might comment, referencing details I'd shared in previous correspondence. "I've been reading about CRISPR technology to understand your research better." Unlike my parents' cursory interest, Grandmother May engaged substantively with my intellectual development, even as her physical health continued declining. 6 months into my freshman year, the predicted crisis materialized. My Sunday call was answered not by my mother's carefully modulated tones, but by Olivia's uncharacteristically subdued voice. "Jessica? Grandmother May had a stroke yesterday. They're saying it's significant." The information arrived with clinical detachment, yet collapsed the carefully constructed compartmentalization between my Stanford existence and family obligations. Immediate practical calculations followed: missed classes, transcontinental flight costs, academic consequences of mid-semester absence. These considerations competed with genuine emotional distress regarding Grandmother May's condition. "Is she conscious?" I asked, already opening my laptop to search flight options. "In and out," Olivia replied. "The doctors say the next 48 hours are critical. Mom wanted me to ask if you're coming home." The phrasing, my mother delegating this communication rather than making direct contact, registered peripherally but was filed away for later analysis. "I'll book the first available flight. Please text me hospital details." The red-eye from San Francisco to Boston operated at half capacity, allowing me an empty adjacent seat to organize academic contingencies. Emails to professors explaining family emergency. Arrangements with classmates for shared notes. Rescheduling of research assistant responsibilities. The mechanical process of managing logistics provided temporary insulation from emotional realities awaiting at journey's end. Westwood Memorial Hospital presented institutional familiarity, antiseptic surfaces, fluorescent lighting, subdued conversations in standardized waiting areas. My parents occupied uncomfortable chairs outside the intensive care unit, their expressions registering surprise at my prompt arrival, despite having ostensibly requested it. "You didn't need to miss school," my mother began, rising for a perfunctory embrace. "We would have understood if you couldn't get away." "How is she?" I asked, bypassing this characteristic diminishment of my presence. My father's expression conveyed genuine concern beneath habitual stoicism. "The neurologist says there's extensive damage. They've managed to stabilize her condition, but recovery prospects are limited." Grandmother May occupied a semi-private room dominated by monitoring equipment that transformed bodily functions into digital readouts and rhythmic tones. Her diminutive form appeared further reduced against institutional bedding, skin translucent beneath harsh lighting. When I gently took her hand, her eyelids fluttered but didn't open. "I've been reading to her," Olivia offered unexpectedly from the doorway. "The nurses said familiar voices might help, even if she can't respond." This uncharacteristic thoughtfulness momentarily disoriented my established understanding of my sister's character. Olivia, at 19, appeared simultaneously familiar and transformed, still conventionally attractive in ways I never aspired to, but carrying herself with subdued maturity previous interactions hadn't suggested. "That's good," I acknowledged, selecting a chair positioned to allow continuous contact with grandmother's hand. "Which texts have you chosen?" "Her Bible, mostly, and I found letters in her nightstand drawer. I think they're from grandfather. Before they married. I've been reading those too." The following 72 hours established uncomfortable proximity with my family after months of carefully maintained distance. We established informal rotation for hospital presence, negotiating, schedules with minimal direct communication. When simultaneous visits became unavoidable, conversation remained focused exclusively on grandmother's condition and practical arrangements. My parents maintained professional commitments despite the crisis, while Olivia balanced hospital visits with college coursework from the regional state university she now attended. On the third evening, returning to the house for a brief shower and change of clothes, I encountered my father alone in the kitchen. The unusual circumstance, his typical schedule keeping him at the office until late evening, suggested deliberate timing. "The neurologist doesn't believe your grandmother will regain consciousness," he stated without preamble, systematically preparing coffee with measured movements. "We're considering comfort care options at this point." The clinical detachment in his tone matched my own typical approach, yet triggered unexpected anger. "Shouldn't that discussion include all family members?" He glanced up with mild surprise. "We intended to discuss it tomorrow when everyone could be present. I'm simply providing advance information so you can prepare your thoughts." The consideration, while practically sound, highlighted our fundamental communication disconnect. My father anticipated my preference for analytical processing time without emotional context, correctly identifying my operational patterns while missing the underlying humanity those patterns protected. "I appreciate that," I acknowledged, recognizing the gesture despite its limitations. A hesitation preceded his next statement. "Your program at Stanford, would extended absence create significant academic complications?" The question contained multiple implications: anticipation of prolonged end-of-life care, concern about my educational trajectory, potential recognition of my centrality to family decision-making. I considered these layers briefly before responding. I've arranged accommodations with professors for this week. Beyond that, options would depend on specific circumstances. He nodded, apparently satisfied with this conditional response. Your mother and I are grateful you could come. We know your studies are demanding. The acknowledgement, however limited, represented unusual recognition of my priorities. Before I could formulate appropriate response, he continued with unexpected directness. We haven't always provided what you needed, Jessica. Perhaps we still don't understand what that would entail. The statement, the closest approximation to apology our family linguistics permitted, hung between us. I accepted the coffee cup he extended, using the gesture to bridge uncomfortable silence. Understanding isn't prerequisite for respect, I finally offered, the words emerging with unplanned precision. Recognition of difference without value judgment would have been sufficient. His expression reflected genuine consideration rather than defensive withdrawal. That's fair assessment. Perhaps overdue. The conversation might have continued toward meaningful reconciliation had Olivia not arrived then, disrupting the tenuous connection with immediate practical concerns. The moment passed unremarked, though its residual significance lingered. Grandmother May never regained consciousness. 5 days after my arrival, her condition deteriorated beyond medical intervention. The family gathered at her bedside as monitors, registered diminishing vital signs until the eventual flatlining that transformed presence into absence with bureaucratic finality. A nurse offered practiced condolences while initiating procedural documentation. My mother wept quietly while my father maintained stoic composure. Olivia stepped into the hallway, shoulders trembling with suppressed emotion. I remained seated, still holding grandmother's hand as residual warmth gradually dissipated. The private grief I experienced differed fundamentally from my family's performative responses. Not greater or lesser, simply distinct in its acknowledgement of what had been lost. Beyond familial relationship, Grandmother May had represented validation of my experience, recognition of my worth independent of comparative evaluation, connection to heritage beyond immediate family dynamics. Her absence created vacancy in these essential domains. Funeral arrangements proceeded with systematic efficiency. My father managed logistical details while my mother coordinated community notifications. Olivia organized photograph displays and reception preparations. I was assigned obituary composition, translating a complex life into newspaper-appropriate condensation, a task requiring precision my family correctly identified as my particular strength. The service itself presented unfamiliar navigation of public grief, intersecting with private estrangement. Community members approached with condolences and reminiscences, perceiving our family unit through conventional framework that bore limited resemblance to actual dynamics. Your parents must be so proud of your achievements at Stanford, one elderly church member commented, the statement containing unintentional irony we both tacitly ignored. Returning to the house afterward, now, permanently vacated by grandmother's presence, we enacted ritualized family dinner with paradoxical formality. The dining room table, rarely used during my childhood except for holiday gatherings, was set with grandmother's inherited china, supporting elaborate catered dishes largely consumed in silence. Jessica, my mother eventually began, setting down her water glass with deliberate precision. We should discuss your return schedule to Stanford. The statement's presumptive dismissal might once have triggered defensive withdrawal. Instead, I responded with direct inquiry. Is there something requiring immediate resolution before my departure? My parents exchanged glances containing unspoken communication. There are matters regarding your grandmother's affairs, my father explained. Some documents require your signature as beneficiary. This unexpected information momentarily disrupted my composure. Beneficiary? My mother's expression reflected complex emotions. resignation tinged with something resembling guilt. Your grandmother established trusts for both you and Olivia some years ago. Additionally, her will specifies certain personal items designated specifically for your inheritance. The revelation that Grandmother May had made independent financial provisions generated questions beyond immediate circumstances. When had these arrangements been established? What had motivated their creation? Why had this information remained undisclosed during her lifetime? These considerations competed with immediate practical implications regarding bequest management alongside academic obligations. I can extend my stay through Tuesday if necessary, I offered, mentally recalculating academic consequences. Professor Harrington's midterm could be arranged remotely with appropriate documentation. Legal proceedings introduced unfamiliar terminology alongside unexpected revelations. Grandmother May's modest estate, primarily comprised of insurance proceeds and retirement accounts from her late husband's employment, had been meticulously structured through legal consultation. Separate trusts established for Olivia and myself contained identical financial allocations with significantly different distribution parameters. The beneficiary designated as Olivia Chen shall receive distributed funds upon reaching age 25, with emergency provisions accessible through trustee application, the attorney read from formal documentation. The beneficiary designated as Jessica Chen shall have immediate access to allocated funds without restriction upon grantor's passing, reflecting grantor's assessment of demonstrated financial responsibility. The explicit statement of differential evaluation, documented in legal language, created momentary discomfort apparent in my parents' carefully neutral expressions. Olivia's reaction combined surprise with characteristic indignation. Why does Jessica get immediate access while I have to wait 6 years? That's completely unfair. The attorney, a precise woman in her 50s with practiced professional detachment, responded with clinical accuracy. The grantor's specific instructions reflected her assessment of respective beneficiary maturity regarding financial management. The documentation includes personal correspondence explaining these determinations if you wish to review it. Beyond monetary allocations, Grandmother May had designated specific personal possessions for individual inheritance. Olivia received jewelry collections and decorative items of significant monetary value. My designated items proved more personally significant: handwritten journals documenting grandmother's life experiences, family photographs with detailed annotations, and a lacquered wooden box containing correspondence I recognized as our private communications during my Stanford attendance. Most unexpected was the final bequest, a separate envelope marked for my exclusive review, delivered with attorney-client confidentiality protections. Opening it later in the privacy of my former attic bedroom, I discovered formal documentation of a secondary account established without family knowledge. Grandmother May had systematically diverted portions of her modest pension over many years, creating accumulations specifically designated for my educational independence and professional establishment. The accompanying letter provided context that triggered unexpected tears. "My dearest Jessica," the familiar handwriting began, "this separate provision reflects no favoritism, but rather recognition of systematically unequal distribution of family resources you have experienced. Where imbalance exists, sometimes correction requires asymmetrical response. Use these funds not for material acquisition, but for strategic independence, education without compromise, professional opportunities without limitation, future security without dependence. Your exceptional capabilities deserve unencumbered expression." The account contained approximately $42,000, not transformative wealth, but strategic resource representing previously unimagined optionality. Undergraduate completion without additional loans, graduate studies without financial constraint, initial housing security during career establishment. The monetary value paled against the profound validation of experience the provision represented external confirmation that my perception of unequal treatment reflected objective reality rather than subjective misinterpretation. My return to Stanford occurred without the emotional separation anxiety displayed by many students, following family bereavement. Academic reintegration proceeded systematically, with professors demonstrating unexpected accommodation regarding missed assignments and examination scheduling. The transparent documentation of grandmother's illness and passing generated institutional support, typically reserved for more conventional family structures. What shifted significantly was my internal relationship with educational objectives. Grandmother May's bequest, both financial resource and explicit validation, created decision-making freedom previously unavailable. Course selection expanded beyond strictly pragmatic career preparation toward genuine intellectual curiosity. The economics-computer science combination remained primary focus, but supplemental exploration now included previously inaccessible options: advanced Chinese language study connecting to cultural heritage, theoretical physics engaging abstract reasoning capabilities, comparative literature examining narrative construction across cultural contexts. Communication with my family continued through established patterns: Sunday calls, holiday acknowledgments, exchange of essential information without emotional context. My parents rarely initiated contact beyond these structured interactions. Olivia occasionally reached out with specific requests: academic assistance, advice regarding internship applications, guidance navigating university bureaucracy. These communications maintained superficial connection without addressing fundamental estrangement. The trusts established by Grandmother May created unexpected intersection points, requiring periodic family consultation. Quarterly statements generated occasional clarification questions. Tax implications necessitated coordinated documentation. These administrative requirements maintained minimal engagement without emotional reconciliation, functioning as mechanical connections between fundamentally separated entities. Stanford's academic environment provided intellectual stimulation, alongside unexpected social development. The calculated connections established during freshman orientation gradually evolved toward genuine relationships. Study partnerships transitioning to personal friendships, research collaborations extending to non-academic interactions. My roommate Zoe, initially perceived as fundamentally dissimilar in temperament and priority, became unlikely confidant after late-night conversations revealed surprising commonalities beneath surface differences. "You approach everything like a strategic operation," she observed during one such conversation. "Even friendship seems catalogued as functional asset." The assessment, while uncomfortably accurate, prompted unprecedented self-reflection regarding relationship formation. Had systematic protection against family devaluation created rigid patterns limiting connection beyond academic contexts? Did strategic self-sufficiency necessarily preclude authentic vulnerability? These considerations initiated gradual behavioral adjustments, calculated risks toward incremental openness, experimental relaxation of protective boundaries, selective disclosure of personal history within trusted relationships. Professor Harrington's research assistantship expanded into unofficial mentorship transcending academic guidance. During office hours ostensibly dedicated to differential calculus applications, conversation frequently extended toward professional development and personal philosophy. "Your analytical capabilities are exceptional," he noted during one such session. "But sometimes intuitive leaps require suspending systematic processing. The most elegant mathematical solutions often emerge when we temporarily release structured thinking." This perspective, challenging my fundamental operational approach without dismissing its validity, offered developmental framework distinct from family dynamics that had consistently devalued my natural tendencies. The suggestion that analytical strength could be selectively complemented rather than fundamentally altered represented significant paradigm shift. Junior year brought increased academic specialization alongside expanded independence. The university's cooperative housing program offered single-occupancy apartments with shared community spaces, ideal balance between social integration and personal autonomy. My academic performance had generated merit scholarships, supplementing grandmother's bequest, creating financial security typically unavailable to undergraduate students. Employment opportunities shifted from necessity-driven positions toward strategic internships, enhancing post-graduation prospects. Summer internship placements provided practical application of theoretical knowledge alongside professional network development. Investment analysis at regional financial institutions, data modeling for technology startups, economic forecasting for public policy organizations. Each experience confirmed academic preparation while identifying practical knowledge gaps requiring targeted development. The structured progression toward post-graduation employment proceeded with methodical precision, reflecting characteristic planning. What remained unresolved was my relationship with Westwood and the family home that had simultaneously sheltered and diminished me. Holiday returns became increasingly abbreviated, 48 hours of functional interaction before retreating to Stanford's academic sanctuary. Conversations with my parents maintained superficial pleasantry without addressing fundamental disconnections. Olivia and I established tentative adult relationship based primarily on her increasing academic seriousness and occasional recognition of past imbalances. I didn't really understand what was happening with the whole attic situation, she acknowledged, during one rare moment of genuine communication. I was 13 and focused on my own stuff. But looking back, it was pretty messed up how they treated you differently. The statement, while falling short of apology, represented unprecedented acknowledgement of objective reality rather than family mythology. This recognition, however limited, suggested potential foundation for eventual authentic connection independent of parental mediation. What I couldn't possibly anticipate, methodically constructing independent adulthood from Stanford's protective infrastructure, was how dramatically circumstances would reverse established patterns. The carefully maintained separation between my California existence and Westwood origins would collapse through crisis beyond anyone's strategic calculation. The house that had relegated me to attic accommodation was about to become central focus of previously unimaginable familial reconfiguration. Senior year at Stanford unfolded with methodical precision. My academic standing placed me in the top 3% of the economics department, with secondary recognition in computer science. The honors thesis comparing algorithmic efficiency and market prediction models had attracted attention from faculty advisors and external reviewers alike. Professor Harrington, reading my final draft, had removed his glasses with characteristic deliberation before delivering uncharacteristic praise. This analysis wouldn't be out of place in a doctoral dissertation, Ms. Chen. Your integration of statistical models with behavioral economics principles shows remarkable sophistication. The external validation, while gratifying, merely confirmed internal assessments of my work quality. More significant was the practical outcome: recruitment interest from top-tier financial institutions and technology firms seeking graduates with my specific interdisciplinary expertise. Campus interviews had generated 7 substantial offers before winter quarter concluded, creating unprecedented opportunity for strategic selection rather than necessity-driven acceptance. After systematic comparison of compensation structures, advancement trajectories, and geographic considerations, I accepted position with Meridian Analytics, a specialized consulting firm at the intersection of financial technology and market analysis based in San Francisco. The starting salary exceeded median compensation for Stanford economics graduates by 23%, with additional performance-based incentives and substantial relocation allowance. The position balanced immediate financial security with optimal skill development for long-term career progression. Graduate school remained eventual objective rather than immediate priority. Meridian's tuition reimbursement program would subsidize part-time MBA studies after 2 years of employment, allowing simultaneous professional advancement and academic development. This structured approach aligned with strategic planning that had characterized my educational journey since recognizing self-sufficiency as fundamental survival requirement. My final Stanford semester maintained academic excellence while incorporating calculated social engagement. The protective isolation that had characterized early university experience had gradually modified through selective trust development with proven individuals. Zoe remained primary confidant despite temperamental differences, our unlikely friendship enduring through mutual recognition of complementary strengths. The research cohort under Professor Harrington's mentorship provided intellectual community extending beyond academic collaboration into occasional recreational activities. Communication with my family continued through established minimal patterns. Sunday calls maintained performative connection without substantive engagement. My parents expressed appropriate congratulations regarding job acceptance without demonstrating genuine interest in position specifics. Olivia, approaching graduation from State University with business administration degree, occasionally solicited advice regarding employment applications and interview preparation. The geographical separation established by Stanford acceptance would continue through San Francisco employment, maintaining physical distance that facilitated emotional boundaries. Holiday visits could be managed through brief appearances maintaining familial obligation without risking substantive engagement. The professional independence secured through academic achievement and employment prospects established foundation for permanently modified relationship with family origins. Commencement exercises presented final navigation of family interaction within academic context. My parents and Olivia attended the ceremony with mechanical obligation rather than enthusiastic celebration, their presence fulfilling social expectation without emotional investment. The contrast with fellow graduates' family dynamics, parents displaying overt pride, siblings offering genuine congratulations, extended relatives traveling significant distances, highlighted ongoing disconnection despite superficial reconciliation. The graduation luncheon afterward presented similar juxtaposition. Seated at white-clothed table in university-adjacent restaurant, my family maintained polite conversation without meaningful engagement. My father inquired about apartment arrangements in San Francisco with practical focus on financial considerations rather than living conditions. My mother commented on ceremony length with mild complaint rather than degree achievement. Olivia alternated between social media distraction and superficial commentary on campus aesthetics. "We have something for you," my father announced as dessert plates were cleared, retrieving envelope from interior jacket pocket. The small ceremony of presentation suggested significance beyond typical interaction. The envelope contained modest check with accompanying card featuring generic congratulatory language and perfunctory signatures. The amount, while not insignificant, represented fraction of educational support provided to Olivia throughout her undergraduate experience. The gesture occupied ambiguous territory between genuine acknowledgement and obligation fulfillment, neither generous enough to suggest value recognition nor minimal enough to justify continued resentment. "Thank you," I responded with matching ambiguity, the statement acknowledging transaction without specifying gratitude magnitude. "We're proud of what you've accomplished," my mother added with uncharacteristic directness. "You've always been so capable." The observation, accurate but incomplete, highlighted fundamental family dynamic. My capability had simultaneously justified reduced support and explained achievement despite that reduction. The circular logic permitted continued abdication of responsibility while acknowledging undeniable outcomes. Rather than challenging this framework, I accepted the statement at face value, recognizing the limitations of potential reconciliation. 2 weeks after graduation, I relocated to San Francisco, establishing residence in modest but well-situated apartment within walking distance of Meridian's Market Street offices. The furnishings represented calculated investment in professional presentation rather than personal expression, quality pieces selected for durability and appropriate aesthetics, rather than emotional attachment. The space functioned as operational base rather than sentimental sanctuary. Its primary value derived from location convenience and functional efficiency. Professional integration proceeded with characteristic methodical approach. The orientation period demonstrated Meridian's systematic operational structure, detailed protocols for client engagement, standardized analytical frameworks, comprehensive documentation requirements. These established parameters aligned with my natural tendencies toward structured processing, allowing rapid adaptation to organizational expectations. Unlike academic environments where individual achievement represented primary success metric, professional advancement required additional interpersonal navigation. Team projects necessitated collaborative approaches balancing individual contribution with collective outcomes. Client interactions demanded communication adjustment beyond analytical precision, incorporating relationship management alongside technical expertise. These dimensions required deliberate skill development, extending beyond natural inclinations. My immediate supervisor, Elaine Tanner, provided unexpected mentorship in these developmental areas. A senior analyst with 15 years industry experience, she combined technical proficiency with exceptional interpersonal capabilities, translating complex analysis into accessible client communication, managing team dynamics with apparent effortlessness, navigating organizational politics with strategic precision. "Your technical skills are exceptional," she observed during my first performance review. "But client relationships require balance between analytical precision and interpersonal connection. They need to trust not just your data, but your judgment." The distinction between information provision and insight delivery represented significant professional development opportunity. While academic excellence had rewarded comprehensive analysis regardless of presentation, professional advancement required selective communication tailored to audience requirements. This calibration demanded contextual assessment beyond pure analytical processing. 3 months into my Meridian employment, our team secured significant contract with AvidTech, a rapidly expanding financial technology company requiring comprehensive market positioning analysis. The project scope necessitated interdisciplinary approach combining traditional financial metrics with emerging technology valuation models. The complexity and visibility created opportunity for accelerated professional establishment beyond typical entry-level responsibilities. Elaine assigned me primary analytical responsibilities while maintaining client relationship management herself, optimal arrangement leveraging respective strengths while providing developmental opportunity. The project demanded intensive focus over 8-week period, with frequent evening work and occasional weekend sessions ensuring comprehensive analysis within client timeframe. The demanding schedule established unfamiliar routine, pre-dawn arrival at Meridian offices, rapid consumption of delivery meals at workstation, midnight returns to apartment for minimal sleep before repeating cycle. The AvidTech presentation represented crucial professional benchmark, first major client delivery with significant responsibility allocation. The preparation demanded meticulous attention beyond analytical content, incorporating presentation structure, visual design, elements, and potential question anticipation. Elaine provided targeted guidance without micromanagement, allowing independent development with strategic support. "You've prepared comprehensive analysis," she noted during final review session. "But remember that executives rarely want exhaustive detail. They need clear insights supporting specific decisions. Your job is translating complexity into actionable recommendations." The presentation itself proceeded with unexpected smoothness despite initial nervous tension. The client executives, primarily technology backgrounds with limited financial expertise, responded positively to my deliberate translation of complex analysis into practical applications. The question period demonstrated knowledge depth without excessive technical exposition, maintaining balance between comprehensive understanding and accessible communication. "Impressive work from someone so early in their career," the AvidTech CEO commented afterward. exchanging business cards with specific request for direct contact regarding implementation phases. Your analysis provided clarity we've been missing, despite multiple consultancy engagements. The successful delivery generated immediate professional consequences. Elaine's subsequent performance documentation highlighted exceptional contribution beyond experience level. Internal recognition materialized through assignment to higher-profile projects, typically reserved for mid-level analysts. Compensation. Adjustment arrived through unscheduled bonus allocation, recognizing specific AvidTech contribution. Beyond tangible rewards, the project established important precedent regarding professional identity formation. The demonstrated capability created foundation for career trajectory based on measurable contribution rather than hierarchical progression. This meritocratic environment contrasted sharply with family dynamics that had consistently undervalued demonstrable achievement in favor of preferential allocation. 18 months into Meridian employment, my professional advancement exceeded standard progression metrics. Promotion to senior analyst position had materialized 6 months ahead of typical timeline. Client relationships expanded beyond support. Roles into primary contact status for specialized engagements. Internal recognition included invitation to participate in strategic planning sessions, typically restricted to management levels. Financial security followed professional advancement with corresponding acceleration. The base salary increases combined with performance bonuses created substantial monthly surplus beyond living expenses. Systematic investment strategy distributed. These resources across retirement accounts, market portfolios, and dedicated savings instruments. The accumulated financial foundation represented not just security measure, but fundamental independence assurance, freedom from dependence on institutional or familial support systems. Communication with family remained minimal throughout this period of professional establishment. The quarterly phone calls maintained superficial connection without meaningful engagement. Abbreviated holiday visits satisfied familial obligation while preserving emotional boundaries. Olivia occasionally initiated contact regarding career advice as she navigated early professional challenges, our relationship maintaining cautious cordiality without addressing historical dynamics. The established separation pattern continued with mutual tacit acceptance until unexpected disruption arrived through midweek phone call from my father, unprecedented breach of communication protocol that immediately signaled significant development. "Jessica." His voice carried uncharacteristic tension even through compressed mobile connection. "We have a situation requiring your input. Your mother has been diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer." The information arrived with characteristic directness reflecting family communication patterns, factual delivery without emotional framing. My response matched this established protocol, focusing on practical dimensions rather than emotional reactions. "What stage and type? What treatment protocol has been recommended?" The subsequent conversation provided clinical details alongside practical implications. Stage TAUIB invasive ductal carcinoma. Recommended treatment involving surgical intervention followed by chemotherapy and radiation. Prognosis generally positive, with appropriate medical response but requiring significant recovery period with substantial assistance requirements. "The immediate concern," my father continued with engineer's systematic approach to problem solving, "is managing your mother's absence from work during treatment while addressing additional expenses beyond insurance coverage." The underlying request remained unstated but clearly implied: financial contribution toward medical costs exceeding their preparations, potential assistance with practical support during treatment period. The indirect nature of solicitation reflected complex family dynamic, acknowledgement of my established independence alongside recognition of current success, reluctance to request explicit assistance given historical support patterns. "I'll need to review my schedule regarding potential visits," I responded with deliberate neutrality. "Regarding financial considerations, please forward specific estimates for review." The conversation concluded without emotional expression from either participant, maintaining established communication patterns despite circumstance gravity. After disconnection, however, the practical implications required systematic assessment beyond immediate response. The potential obligations presented multiple consideration dimensions: financial capacity versus appropriate boundaries, familial, obligation versus historical inequity, professional responsibilities versus personal accommodations. Financial analysis represented most straightforward dimension. My current resources could absorb significant medical expense contribution without compromising essential security or investment strategy. The measurable capability created theoretical obligation independent of emotional considerations. This capacity analysis, however, existed separately from appropriate boundary determination regarding historical relationship patterns. Professional accommodation presented more complex calculation. Meridian's organizational culture demonstrated reasonable flexibility regarding family medical situations, with established precedents for remote work arrangements and adjusted schedules during immediate crisis periods. The recently established performance record provided leverage for accommodation requests beyond standard protocols. These considerations suggested practical feasibility without definitive obligation. The emotional dimension presented most challenging: assessment. The long-standing family pattern, systematic undervaluation of my needs while expecting disproportionate contribution, created justified hesitation regarding renewed engagement. Historical precedent suggested potential exploitation rather than genuine recalibration. However, complete disengagement during medical crisis potentially represented disproportionate boundary establishment beyond reasonable protective measures. After systematic consideration of interconnected factors, I developed structured response plan balancing multiple considerations. Financial support would be provided through direct payment to medical providers rather than unrestricted funds transfer, establishing assistance without relinquishing control. Professional accommodation would involve strategic schedule adjustment rather than comprehensive availability modification. Personal boundaries would maintain appropriate distance while acknowledging legitimate medical situation. The implementation began with formal communication to my father, outlining specific parameters for engagement. Financial contribution would address uncovered medical expenses with documentation requirements and direct provider payment. Personal assistance would involve scheduled weekend visits during critical treatment phases rather than extended residence relocation. Professional obligations would necessitate primary residence maintenance in San Francisco with strategic travel accommodation rather than geographical relocation. This approach appears reasonable, my father responded with characteristic precision. Your mother's first surgical procedure is scheduled for Thursday next week. Your presence would be appropriately timed for the weekend afterward during initial recovery period. The return to Westwood occurred with methodical preparation rather than emotional anticipation. Airline reservations, rental car arrangements, hotel accommodation booking, each element organized with characteristic attention to detail. The decision to secure independent lodging rather than utilizing the family home represented deliberate boundary establishment despite potential perception as unnecessary expense. The hospital presented institutional familiarity, similar antiseptic environment to Grandmother May's final residence, though different facility with updated architectural features. My mother occupied private room through insurance coverage. The space transformed through personal adjustments. Family photographs arranged on bedside table, specific blanket replacing institutional bedding, literary novel positioned on adjustable tray table. Her physical appearance reflected treatment impact through visible indicators: surgical drainage equipment, monitoring attachments, medication delivery systems, alongside less tangible manifestations of vulnerability rarely displayed within family dynamics. Her characteristic self-containment appeared temporarily suspended through medical intervention and pharmaceutical influence. Jessica, she acknowledged my arrival with unusual directness. You didn't need to interrupt your work. Your father exaggerates the situation. The statement, attempting to maintain established family mythology despite objective contradiction, represented both habitual pattern and poignant recognition of fundamental relationship dynamics. Even within genuine medical crisis, maintaining appearance of self-sufficiency apparently outweighed acknowledging legitimate need for support. "I've arranged accommodations through Sunday," I responded with deliberate neutrality. "Meridian has approved remote work provisions should extended presence become necessary." My father entered with institutional coffee, his expression reflecting complex reaction to my presence. Relief regarding practical assistance alongside discomfort with established independence implications. The doctor's report satisfactory surgical outcome with clear margins. Recovery timeline remains consistent with initial projections. The conversation maintained clinical focus, treatment protocols, medication schedules, follow-up appointment coordination, without addressing emotional dimensions or historical relationship patterns. This established approach provided familiar interaction framework despite unprecedented circumstance context. The professional detachment that had characterized my corporate advancement transferred effectively to medical crisis management. The weekend established functional routine balancing, hospital presence with practical assistance. Daytime hours provided direct support during visiting periods, physical comfort adjustments, medication coordination, healthcare provider communication facilitation. Evening activities focused on household management, meal preparation for my father, essential cleaning maintenance, prescription collection from pharmacy. These tangible contributions satisfied obligation requirements without requiring artificial emotional performance beyond genuine capacity. Sunday evening, as departure, preparations commenced. My mother initiated unexpected conversation diverging from established patterns. The pharmaceutical influence perhaps reduced typical inhibitions regarding direct communication, creating temporary transparency window within long-standing opacity. "You've built something impressive," she observed from adjustable hospital bed, gesturing vaguely toward my professional appearance. "I don't think we ever understood what you needed from us." The statement, approaching acknowledgement without achieving apology, represented unprecedented recognition despite limited scope. My response balanced truthful assessment with circumstance-appropriate restraint. Different children require different support approaches. My self-sufficiency was simultaneously praised and used to justify reduced investment. She considered this assessment with uncharacteristic receptiveness rather than defensive rejection. "We recognized your capability early. Perhaps we mistook independence for invitation to disengage." The conversation potentially represented meaningful recalibration opportunity within long-standing pattern. However, medical circumstance created ethical constraint regarding substantive confrontation during vulnerability period. This recognition prompted measured response rather than comprehensive accountability demand. Current circumstances necessitate focusing on recovery rather than historical assessment. Perhaps future conversations can address these considerations from stronger foundation. The statement established both recognition of tentative communication opening and appropriate boundary regarding timing limitation. My mother nodded with apparent acceptance of this balanced approach, neither dismissing relationship discussion nor demanding immediate resolution during medical crisis. "Your assistance this weekend has been significant," she acknowledged with unaccustomed directness. "Your father struggles with practical management despite theoretical capability." This observation, accurate assessment beneath surface humor, highlighted another dimension of long-standing family dynamic. My father's proclaimed practical capability had consistently received deferential acknowledgement despite operational limitations, while my demonstrated competence remained undervalued through habitual pattern rather than objective assessment. The return to San Francisco following this initial intervention established modified engagement pattern rather than complete resumption of previous separation. Weekly video calls provided treatment progress updates alongside practical coordination, regarding subsequent visit timing. Financial contributions proceeded through direct medical provider payments rather than unrestricted family transfers. Professional accommodations balanced legitimate career obligations with appropriate family. Crisis response. The second Westwood visit coincided with chemotherapy initiation, presenting different support requirements than surgical recovery. Physical assistance shifted toward symptom management rather than wound care. Emotional support increased relevance as treatment side effects manifested. Practical household maintenance expanded importance as my mother's functional capacity temporarily diminished. During this visit, Olivia's presence created additional dynamic complexity. Her sporadic engagement during initial diagnosis and surgical intervention had reflected established family patterns, inconsistent involvement without sustained commitment. Her current participation, while genuinely supportive in specific moments, maintained characteristic limitation through frequent social distractions and emotional overwhelm when confronting medical realities. "I don't understand how you manage this so calmly," she commented during a rare moment of sister-exclusive interaction. "The medical details, the practical arrangements, the emotional weight, it's completely overwhelming." The observation contained implicit recognition of capability, value previously under-acknowledged within family context. Rather than highlighting this significance, I offered practical perspective reflecting genuine assessment rather than scored validation. Different people contribute different strengths during crisis situations. Your emotional engagement provides connection my approach sometimes lacks. This balanced acknowledgement, recognizing complementary capabilities rather than competitive evaluation, represented personal growth beyond historical resentment without abandoning accurate assessment. Olivia's surprised expression suggested unexpected impact from this perspective shift, potentially creating foundation for modified relationship independent of parental mediation. The following months established rotating support system as my mother progressed through treatment protocols. My visits occurred bi-weekly through strategically scheduled weekend travel from San Francisco, providing consistent intervention without compromising professional responsibilities. Olivia maintained local presence with irregular timing, reflecting her less structured employment circumstances. My father managed daily requirements with increasing practical competence despite initial limitations. Throughout this period, financial management represented significant concern beneath medical considerations. Insurance coverage addressed major treatment components while leaving substantial supplementary expenses uncovered. Specialized medications, home care equipment, transportation services, dietary supplements. My systematic contribution toward these expenses occurred through direct vendor payment rather than family fund transfer, maintaining appropriate boundary while providing necessary support. 6 months into treatment progression, my father initiated unprecedented financial discussion during scheduled visit overlap. "Your mother's medical leave compensation ends next month," he explained with characteristic directness. "The extended absence has created significant income reduction alongside ongoing treatment expenses." The statement contained familiar, indirect request pattern, factual situation description, implying assistance expectation without explicit solicitation. Rather than requiring interpretation clarification, I responded with direct engagement addressing underlying concern. "What specific financial shortfall are you projecting, and over what time frame?" The resulting conversation revealed genuine financial distress beyond my previous assessment. My parents' preparation for retirement had prioritized property investment over liquid savings, creating asset wealth without accessibility during income interruption. The mortgage payments on the family home represented particular strain given reduced household income during medical leave extension. "We're considering property liquidation options," my father acknowledged with reluctant transparency. "The current market conditions aren't optimal, but necessity may override timing preference." The potential home sale represented significant practical and psychological implications. Beyond immediate residence loss, the property represented primary retirement security through accumulated equity. The forced liquidation during market downturn would create long-term financial consequence beyond immediate crisis resolution. This situation presented complex consideration beyond straightforward assistance calculation. Direct financial intervention at sufficient scale to prevent property liquidation would require substantial commitment beyond reasonable boundary establishment. However, complete disengagement from legitimate financial crisis potentially represented disproportionate boundary enforcement given ongoing medical situation. After systematic analysis of interconnected factors, I developed structured proposal addressing immediate concerns while establishing appropriate parameters for engagement. The approach would involve temporary mortgage payment assumption during treatment completion and initial recovery period, defined timeframe with specific termination parameters rather than open-ended commitment. This targeted intervention would prevent forced property liquidation while maintaining reasonable boundary definition. I can assume mortgage payments for 6-month period with potential 3-month extension pending recovery progression, I proposed, during family discussion session. This arrangement would preserve property asset while creating breathing room for long-term financial recalibration. My parents' reaction combined visible relief with complicated emotional undercurrent. Gratitude, alongside discomfort regarding dependence reversal within established family dynamic. After brief private consultation, they accepted the proposed arrangement with characteristic pragmatism, if not explicit appreciation. What none of us could anticipate during this pragmatic financial negotiation was how dramatically circumstances would evolve beyond current understanding, transforming temporary intervention into fundamental reconfiguration of family property relationship through unprecedented reversal of historical power dynamics. The mortgage payment arrangement established temporary stability during my mother's ongoing treatment. Each month, I transferred precisely calculated amounts to the mortgage servicer, maintaining property security without directing funds through family accounts. This structured approach satisfied immediate needs while preserving appropriate boundaries regarding financial entanglement. 3 months into this arrangement, I received unexpected communication from Eleanor Weber, the family's longtime accountant. Her message, professionally formal yet containing subtle urgency, requested consultation regarding significant financial considerations affecting long-term property planning. The unusual outreach, bypassing typical family communication channels, suggested complexity beyond standard financial management. Our subsequent conference call revealed concerning circumstances beyond previously disclosed information. My parents' financial situation contained additional complications beyond medical expenses and income reduction. Prior to my mother's diagnosis, they had accumulated substantial credit obligations through home equity utilization, creating secondary property liens with accelerating interest structures. These arrangements, established during Olivia's educational period and subsequent employment instability, had expanded beyond sustainable management, given current income limitations. The mortgage payments you've assumed represent one dimension of immediate concern, Eleanor explained with professional detachment. However, the secondary obligations have continued accumulating during this period. Without comprehensive intervention, property preservation becomes mathematically impossible regardless of primary mortgage maintenance. This revelation introduced multiple consideration dimensions beyond original assessment. The undisclosed obligations suggested either deliberate information withholding or concerning financial management limitations. The accumulated debt magnitude indicated systematic pattern rather than isolated emergency response. The specific timing coinciding with Olivia's educational support highlighted continued resource allocation disparity, despite apparent reconciliation gestures. What specific obligations exist beyond the primary mortgage? I inquired, maintaining professional tone despite emerging concern. The subsequent disclosure presented troubling financial landscape. Home equity line carrying $87,000 balance with Variable interest rate currently at 7.8%. Secondary property line structured as personal loan against equity valued at $42,000 with 9.2% fixed rate. Credit card consolidation loan secured against property at $34,000 with 11.5% interest. The combined monthly obligations exceeded sustainable management, given reduced household income during medical leave, creating accelerating negative equity situation. Your father authorized this information sharing, Eleanor noted, anticipating potential confidentiality concerns. He's requested your analytical assessment of available options given your financial expertise. The request represented significant shift in established family dynamic, explicit acknowledgement of professional capability beyond previous recognition. This development, while validating in specific context, arrived embedded within concerning financial revelation requiring immediate practical response beyond psychological assessment. After comprehensive analysis of provided documentation, I arranged direct meeting with my parents during scheduled weekend visit. The conversation would necessarily address not just immediate financial intervention, but underlying patterns creating current circumstances. This confrontation, while potentially uncomfortable, represented essential foundation for sustainable resolution beyond temporary stabilization. The family dining room, site of countless uncomfortable conversations throughout childhood, provided ironically appropriate setting for financial intervention discussion. My parents occupied their traditional positions at table ends, their expressions reflecting complex emotional mixture beneath attempted professional composure. The documentation spread between us represented undeniable evidence requiring acknowledgement, beyond previous selective disclosure. The mortgage payments I've assumed represent incomplete solution given these additional obligations, I began, maintaining direct factual approach. Comprehensive resolution requires full understanding of circumstances creating current situation. My father's response combined defensive justification with reluctant transparency. Your sister's educational expenses exceeded anticipated requirements. Her subsequent employment challenges necessitated continued support during establishment. Period. Your mother's professional position faced compensation limitations despite advancement. These factors created temporary resource constraints requiring secured financing solutions. The explanation, while factually accurate, contained significant omission regarding resource allocation priorities throughout equivalent periods. My own educational journey had proceeded without family financial support, despite similar institutional costs. My professional establishment had occurred without transitional assistance, despite comparable initial challenges. These disparities remained unacknowledged within current explanation framework. The combined obligations exceed sustainable management regardless of individual validity, I noted, returning focus to immediate financial reality rather than historical pattern analysis. Current property value versus accumulated debt creates negative equity projection within 18 months unless significant intervention occurs. My mother, whose treatment had progressed toward completion with positive medical indicators despite ongoing recovery challenges, contributed unexpected perspective to financial discussion. We prioritized poorly, she acknowledged with uncharacteristic directness. The property represented retirement security alongside emotional significance. Leveraging its value for immediate needs compromised both dimensions through short-term thinking. This acknowledgement, approaching accountability without achieving comprehensive recognition, represented significant departure from previous communication patterns. Rather than immediate engagement with this potential relationship development, I maintained focus on practical resolution requirements given situation urgency. 3 primary options exist given current circumstances, I explained, transitioning to solution framework. Property liquidation with downsizing to establish debt-free position. Comprehensive refinancing consolidating all obligations with extended terms. or structured debt assumption with property ownership transfer, reflecting financial contribution reality. Each option received detailed analysis presentation, mathematical projections, timeline considerations, long-term implications alongside immediate impact assessment. The property liquidation approach would eliminate debt burden while creating significant lifestyle adjustment through housing transition. The refinancing option would require substantial income reconstruction through my mother's employment resumption, despite ongoing recovery limitations. The ownership transfer approach would involve complex restructuring with legal and tax implications, requiring specialized guidance. My parents listened with uncharacteristic receptiveness, their expressions reflecting genuine consideration rather than defensive rejection. The documented reality limited traditional dismissal options, creating necessary engagement with situation severity, regardless of emotional discomfort. What would ownership transfer specifically entail? My father inquired after extended consideration period. The question suggested preliminary preference toward option preserving current residence despite significant control adjustment implications. The arrangement would involve transferring property deed to my name while establishing residence rights agreement, ensuring continued occupancy regardless of ownership change, I explained. The existing obligations would transfer to my responsibility with accelerated payoff strategy, leveraging my current financial position. The legal structure would protect property from future credit claims while preserving your residential stability. The proposal represented fundamental power dynamic reversal within family structure, formal acknowledgement of financial capability disparities through legal property reassignment. The psychological implications extended beyond practical financial considerations, creating explicit documentation of relationship recalibration through institutional recognition. We need time to consider options, my mother stated after extended silence. This decision affects numerous dimensions beyond immediate financial resolution. The subsequent 2 weeks proceeded without direct communication beyond brief text confirmation of continued deliberation. The extended consideration period reflected appropriate recognition of decision significance rather than problematic delay tactics. During this interval, I consulted specialized legal counsel regarding structured property transfer protocols, ensuring comprehensive understanding of potential arrangement implications before formal implementation discussion. My father's eventual response came through formal email rather than typical phone communication, the format suggesting deliberate documentation preference regarding significant decision. After extensive consideration of available options, we believe the ownership transfer approach represents most sustainable resolution given current circumstances. Please arrange appropriate legal consultation for formal implementation discussion during your next scheduled visit. The communication's formal tone reflected situation gravity alongside potential emotional complexity beneath practical acknowledgement. The decision represented unprecedented recognition of established independence alongside explicit dependence acknowledgement, complex psychological recalibration beyond financial arrangement technicalities. The implementation process occurred through structured phases, ensuring comprehensive protection for all involved parties. Initial legal consultation established specific transfer parameters, deed reassignment with residency covenant ensuring continued occupancy rights regardless of future property decisions. Financial obligation consolidation transferred accumulated debt responsibility under my management with accelerated payoff strategy leveraging current income capacity. Tax implication planning minimized transfer consequences through appropriate structure utilization within regulatory frameworks. Throughout this technical implementation, unaddressed emotional dimensions remained largely unacknowledged through mutual tacit agreement. The formal property transfer represented significant psychological recalibration whose implications extended beyond legal documentation. The power dynamic reversal, parent dependence upon child's financial intervention, contradicted fundamental family mythology regarding capability assessment and support direction. These considerations remained embedded within practical discussions without explicit acknowledgement. 6 weeks following initial discussion, the property transfer received formal completion through legal documentation filing with appropriate governmental authorities. The family home, site of childhood attic relegation alongside adult medical crisis intervention, officially transferred ownership to my name with accompanying residency covenant ensuring parental occupancy rights. The accumulated financial obligations consolidated under my management with structured elimination strategy, leveraging professional compensation capacity. The psychological significance of this transition manifested through subtle behavioral adjustments rather than explicit discussion. My father's communication patterns demonstrated increased deference regarding property maintenance decisions despite unchanged residency status. My mother's interaction approach showed heightened appreciation for visiting accommodation arrangements previously considered obligatory. These modifications, while incremental rather than transformative, indicated recognition of fundamental relationship recalibration beyond legal documentation. Olivia's reaction to property transfer introduced additional dynamic dimension within evolving family structure. Her initial response combined surprise with characteristic self-reference, concern regarding inheritance implications alongside residence availability during her occasional financial instability periods. The explanation regarding residency covenant provisions satisfied immediate concerns while leaving longer-term expectations unaddressed through deliberate ambiguity. "Does this mean you're moving back eventually?" she inquired during rare sister conversation without parental presence. The question contained multiple implications regarding future expectations and relationship assumptions requiring careful response formulation. My professional establishment remains centered in San Francisco with regular visitation continuing through established patterns, I explained, maintaining factual clarity without unnecessary elaboration. The property transfer represents financial management strategy rather than residence relocation plan. This explanation, while technically accurate, contained deliberate limitation regarding potential future utilization decisions. The ownership transfer created previously unavailable optionality regarding property disposition, whose implementation remained appropriately undefined during initial transition period. These considerations remained internal assessment rather than explicit communication given situation sensitivity. My mother's treatment reached formal completion 4 months following property transfer implementation, though ongoing recovery monitoring continued through established medical protocols. The physical recovery demonstrated positive progression alongside concerning psychological adjustment challenges. The combined impact of health crisis and financial recalibration created identity disruption requiring professional intervention through therapy engagement, alongside family support mechanisms. The property was supposed to represent our achievement, she acknowledged during candid conversation, 8 months into recovery progression. Building equity instead of professional advancement was my compromise accepting geographic limitations. Now that foundation has transferred beyond our control despite continued physical presence. This observation, containing partial accountability, without comprehensive recognition, represented significant communication development despite limitation. The acknowledgement of property investment as compensation mechanism for career sacrifice indicated self-awareness previously unarticulated within family discussions. This perspective insight, while belated regarding decision modification opportunity, provided valuable context for relationship understanding beyond practical arrangements. The property remains your residence with guaranteed continuation through legal covenant, I reminded her, addressing practical concern beneath psychological adjustment. The financial restructuring preserves retirement security through obligation elimination while maintaining established living environment. This response, while factually accurate, deliberately avoided engaging deeper psychological implications requiring extended processing beyond immediate reassurance capacity. The fundamental identity adjustment, from property owner to covenant, beneficiary, represented significant transition requiring individual integration beyond external validation provision. My father's adjustment process manifested through increased property maintenance engagement rather than explicit psychological acknowledgement. The weekend projects that had received perpetual postponement during ownership period suddenly gained implementation priority despite unchanged technical responsibility allocation. The garden landscaping, exterior painting, basement organization, each previously neglected aspect received dedicated attention through newly discovered motivation following ownership transfer. The property responsibilities shift has created unexpected benefit, my mother noted with mild amusement during one such project weekend. Tasks that remained theoretical for decades have suddenly acquired urgent implementation status despite unchanged circumstances. This observation highlighted interesting psychological dimension beyond practical arrangement, responsibility perception affecting behavior modification through ownership adjustment rather than residence change. The property maintenance that had represented burdensome obligation under ownership structure transformed into purposeful contribution following transfer completion, demonstrating interesting agency perception impact beyond technical responsibility allocation. The financial obligation management proceeded through accelerated timeline leveraging my professional compensation capacity alongside strategic investment liquidation. The high-interest secondary obligations received priority elimination through immediate payment, reducing ongoing expense burden while improving long-term financial projection. The primary mortgage underwent refinancing utilizing my superior credit position, reducing interest rate while maintaining consistent payment structure for stability preservation. These technical adjustments occurred through direct management, without requiring parental engagement beyond documentation authorization. 9 months following implementation, the property financial situation demonstrated significant improvement through statistical measurement. The negative equity projection had reversed through obligation reduction combined with modest market appreciation. The monthly expense burden had decreased 27% through interest rate improvement and secondary debt elimination. The long-term financial trajectory indicated potential mortgage retirement within 7 years through accelerated payment strategy, creating expense reduction facilitating retirement security despite previous planning limitations. Beyond measurable, financial improvement, subtle relationship recalibration continued through incremental adjustment rather than dramatic transformation. My monthly visits maintained established frequency while demonstrating modified engagement quality through mutual recognition transition. My parents' communication patterns increasingly acknowledged professional expertise beyond previous dismissal. Tendencies. These adjustments, while modest within individual interactions, represented significant cumulative shift regarding fundamental relationship dynamic. Olivia's evolving response to property transfer highlighted additional family dynamic dimensions through unexpected development progression. Her initial concern regarding inheritance implications gradually transformed toward practical engagement through occasional residence utilization during employment transitions. This evolving expectation, residential availability despite ownership, transfer, created potential boundary management requirements alongside sibling relationship recalibration opportunities. The northwest bedroom has always worked best for extended stays, she noted during one transitional period, her phrasing suggesting proprietary familiarity despite formal ownership adjustment. I'll probably need about 6 weeks until the new position housing allowance activates. This assumption, continued residence availability without formal discussion, presented boundary establishment opportunity within evolving family structure. Rather than immediate correction risking unnecessary confrontation, I implemented structured approach validating legitimate need while establishing appropriate parameters. The residency covenant ensures continued parental occupancy with guest, accommodation at their discretion, I explained, maintaining factual framework without emotional escalation. Extended residence requirements should coordinate directly with them regarding space utilization and contribution expectations. This response, redirecting authority while acknowledging legitimate consideration, represented measured boundary, establishment without unnecessary conflict generation. The approach respected parental residence prerogative while maintaining appropriate ownership acknowledgement through decision process clarification. This balanced engagement indicated personal growth beyond historical resentment without abandoning necessary boundary maintenance. 14 months following property transfer implementation, unexpected development introduced additional complexity through parental health dimension. My father's routine physical examination revealed concerning cardiac indicators requiring further diagnostic evaluation. The subsequent testing identified significant coronary artery blockage necessitating immediate surgical intervention alongside long-term treatment protocol development. This second family health crisis within 2-year period created substantial recalibration regarding support provision expectations alongside practical management requirements. My mother's recovery, while substantially progressed, remained incomplete regarding energy limitations and stress management capacity. This situation created primary care responsibility gap, requiring external intervention beyond existing household resources. The established property arrangement provided unexpected benefit within this new medical challenge context. The financial stability established through ownership transfer eliminated additional stress dimension that might otherwise have complicated treatment focus. The residential security removed potential disruption concern during recovery period. These practical benefits demonstrated arrangement value beyond original financial restructuring objective. My professional position had continued advancement throughout property management period, with promotion to analytics director position expanding both compensation capacity and organizational influence. This development created increased flexibility regarding remote work arrangement potential during family emergency periods, alongside improved financial capacity for medical intervention support. These advantages facilitated appropriate crisis response without compromising career trajectory through forced prioritization. The cardiac treatment protocol established 6-week recovery period requiring substantial assistance beyond my mother's capability given her own ongoing health considerations. This situation necessitated temporary residence relocation to provide appropriate support during critical recovery phase. The arrangement required significant professional accommodation through remote work implementation alongside geographical adjustment from established San Francisco residents. I can arrange extended presence during initial recovery period, I informed my parents following medical consultation. Meridian has approved 6-week remote work implementation with periodic office return requirements. This arrangement provides consistent support presence while maintaining professional responsibilities. The temporary relocation to Westwood created unprecedented circumstance. Extended residence within property I now legally owned, yet had never occupied as primary resident. The psychological dimension of this arrangement, returning to childhood, environment with fundamentally altered authority relationship, presented interesting adjustment requirement beyond practical support provision. My initial accommodation arrangement involved hotel utilization, maintaining separation between support provision and residential integration. This approach preserved appropriate boundaries while ensuring necessary proximity for medical assistance purposes. However, practical limitations regarding extended hotel residence alongside logical efficiency considerations eventually necessitated temporary relocation to family residence, despite potential boundary complication implications. The bedroom selection presented interesting psychological consideration within this temporary arrangement. My childhood room remained permanently converted to grandmother's accommodation, despite her passing years earlier. The attic space, site of teenage relegation, remained technically available though impractical for extended occupation given structural limitations. The guest room presented most logical accommodation, despite its historical utilization primarily for Olivia's friends during high school period. The selected accommodation, guest room with private bathroom access, established appropriate separation within shared residence while facilitating necessary support provision. The arrangement included clearly defined duration parameters preventing indefinite extension through explicit termination timeline linked to recovery progression milestones. These structured boundaries maintained appropriate distinction between temporary assistance provision and permanent residence regression. 6 weeks extended to 8 through medical recommendation regarding recovery progression, though significant improvement permitted graduated responsibility reduction throughout this extended period. My father's physical rehabilitation demonstrated consistent advancement despite initial limitations, creating increasing independence capacity alongside ongoing assistance requirements. My mother's supportive capability gradually increased through energy management improvement, allowing greater responsibility assumption as recovery progressed. Throughout this extended residence period, interesting property relationship dynamics emerged through subtle interaction patterns. Despite legal ownership transfer, psychological adjustment regarding authority expectations demonstrated inconsistent progression through contradictory behavioral indicators. Occasional parental directions regarding household management continued, despite formal ownership reassignment, revealing ingrained relationship patterns requiring conscious modification beyond legal documentation. These moments created opportunity for measured boundary reinforcement through respectful clarification rather than confrontational correction. "I've scheduled maintenance service for the heating system on Thursday," my father announced during dinner discussion, the phrasing suggesting continuing decision authority despite formal transfer completion. "Thank you for identifying the maintenance requirement," I responded, acknowledging contribution while subtly reframing authority relationship. "Please coordinate convenient scheduling with the service provider given your resident's presence." This approach, validating legitimate input while maintaining appropriate authority framework, represented balanced engagement developing mutual respect without unnecessary conflict generation. The incremental adjustment through consistent interaction patterns gradually established modified relationship expectations beyond formal legal documentation. As recovery progressed toward completion, transition planning regarding support reduction and residence readjustment required explicit discussion, ensuring mutual understanding. The conversation addressed both practical assistance modification and psychological adjustment regarding returning relationship boundaries following temporary integration period. The cardiac rehabilitation program shows excellent progression indicators, I noted during family discussion. The medical assessment suggests supervised independence capacity within current household resources, indicating appropriate transition timing regarding external support requirements. This framing, focusing on medical assessment rather than personal preference, provided objective foundation for transition discussion beyond subjective determination potential. The approach maintained supportive engagement while facilitating necessary separation reestablishment through structured regression planning. My return to San Francisco following extended Westwood residence created unexpected emotional response. Despite logical progression through established planning, the psychological readjustment transitioning between these environments, from childhood context with modified authority relationship returning to independent professional identity, required conscious integration beyond practical relocation. Mechanics. The property ownership combined with geographic separation established interesting responsibility balance, requiring ongoing management through structured systems rather than direct oversight. The maintenance requirements, tax obligations, insurance considerations. Each dimension necessitated delegation framework, ensuring appropriate attention without constant personal involvement. These arrangements developed through collaborative implementation rather than unilateral imposition, creating mutual investment despite formal authority reassignment. 22 months following original property transfer, the financial restructuring demonstrated significant achievement through measurable metrics. The negative equity situation had reversed completely through accelerated debt reduction combined with modest market appreciation. The monthly obligation burden had decreased 42% through strategic payment application alongside interest rate improvement. The projected timeline indicated potential mortgage elimination within 5 years rather than original 7-year estimation, creating improved retirement security outlook despite previous planning limitations. Beyond financial improvement, the psychological relationship adjustment demonstrated meaningful though incomplete progression through modified interaction patterns. My parents increasingly acknowledged ownership transition through consultation, regarding significant property decisions despite occasional reversion to previous authority assumptions. These adjustments, while imperfect within individual interactions, represented substantial cumulative shift regarding fundamental relationship perceptions. The property transfer that had originated through financial necessity had evolved toward broader meaning beyond practical arrangement, tangible representation of family dynamic recalibration through modified responsibility allocation. The home, that had originally relegated me to attic accommodation, now legally existed under my ownership with guaranteed parental residency protection. Profound role reversal containing both practical security provision and symbolic relationship redefinition, beyond verbal acknowledgement capacity. This arrangement, while unconventional through traditional family structure assessment, provided uniquely balanced resolution addressing multiple dimension requirements. The financial security prevented catastrophic consequence from medical crisis intervention while preserving residential stability. The legal protection ensured continued appropriate housing despite income limitation during retirement transition. The psychological recalibration formalized changing capability recognition beyond theoretical acknowledgement through institutional documentation. The journey from attic occupant to property owner represented more than simple financial transaction or practical housing arrangement. It embodied fundamental recognition transition regarding capability assessment and contribution value beyond traditional family role assumptions. This evolution, while emerging through crisis necessity rather than voluntary recalibration, nevertheless created meaningful adjustment regarding historical treatment patterns through undeniable circumstance, evidence rather than theoretical acknowledgement. What once represented physical manifestation of hierarchical family valuation, bedroom relegation demonstrating explicit priority assignment, had transformed through circumstance progression and deliberate response into formal documentation of capability recognition and essential contribution beyond traditional expectation frameworks. The attic space remained physical structure component within property architecture, but its symbolic representation had fundamentally transformed through ownership reassignment, establishing profound authority recalibration beyond verbal acknowledgement. Capacity. 3 years into property ownership, I initiated comprehensive assessment regarding long-term utilization strategy. The mortgage obligation had reduced significantly through accelerated payment implementation, creating improved equity position despite modest market fluctuations. The property maintenance had received necessary attention through systematic addressing of previously neglected requirements. The residential stability had maintained consistent support for parental health recovery alongside retirement transition. Planning. This established stability created opportunity for strategic consideration beyond immediate necessity response. The property, while fundamentally sound through basic structural integrity, contained numerous outdated elements limiting both comfort and potential valuation. The original kitchen featured 1980s appliances with declining functionality alongside inefficient layout reflecting outdated usage patterns. The bathroom fixtures demonstrated similar age-related limitations through water efficiency concerns and aesthetic considerations. The energy systems, heating, cooling, insulation, represented significant improvement opportunity through modern technology implementation. These considerations extended beyond cosmetic preference toward practical investment assessment. The property represented significant component within overall financial portfolio, justifying appropriate maintenance allocation alongside strategic improvement implementation. The renovation investment would enhance both current residence quality and potential future valuation, regardless of eventual disposition decision. This balanced approach acknowledged dual purpose, providing improved living conditions for current occupants while enhancing asset quality within investment framework. Professional consultation provided comprehensive assessment regarding renovation priorities and associated investment requirements. The kitchen redesign represented most significant single improvement opportunity through functional enhancement, alongside energy efficiency implementation. The bathroom modernization offered substantial quality of life improvement through accessibility features supporting aging-in-place considerations. The energy system upgrades, including roof insulation, HVAC replacement, and window modernization, provided both immediate comfort enhancement and ongoing operational cost reduction. The complete renovation projection indicated a $175,000 investment requirement, substantial allocation requiring careful consideration regarding financial justification, alongside practical implementation logistics. The funding availability existed through combined resources including investment portfolio liquidation, bonus compensation allocation, and modest financing leverage utilizing improved equity position. The implementation timeline would require temporary residential disruption necessitating alternative accommodation arrangements during critical construction phases. This substantial modification proposal necessitated careful parental consultation despite legal ownership authority. Their continued residence established legitimate input requirement regarding significant environment modification beyond technical permission necessity. The discussion approach required balanced presentation, acknowledging decision authority, while demonstrating appropriate respect for occupant perspectives. I've developed comprehensive property improvement proposal for your consideration, I explained during scheduled weekend visit, presenting detailed documentation with professional renderings alongside technical specifications. The investment would address functional limitations while improving comfort and efficiency considerations. My parents reviewed the materials with unexpected receptiveness, despite traditional resistance toward significant change implementation. My father engaged technical specifications with engineers' analytical perspective, asking relevant questions regarding system integration and performance metrics. My mother focused practical implementation considerations alongside aesthetic elements, demonstrating unexpected design preferences beyond previous expression opportunity. These modifications would create significant improvement regarding daily functionality, she acknowledged, studying kitchen renderings with particular attention. The current configuration has presented increasing challenges alongside changing physical capabilities. This acknowledgement, recognizing age-related adaptation requirements without directly referencing medical recovery implications, represented important communication development beyond previous limitation patterns. The practical engagement with improvement potential indicated psychological adjustment regarding property relationship despite ownership transition. The implementation would require temporary residence relocation during critical construction phases, I explained, addressing practical logistics alongside improvement benefits. I've researched suitable accommodation options within reasonable proximity, maintaining community connection throughout transition period. The subsequent discussion established collaborative approach toward renovation implementation, despite formal decision authority residing with ownership position. My parents contributed legitimate perspective regarding functional priorities based on daily utilization experience. I provided financial framework alongside technical expertise regarding implementation approach. This balanced engagement created mutual investment despite formal authority distinction, developing cooperative implementation rather than unilateral imposition. The contractor selection process demonstrated similar collaborative approach through shared evaluation despite final decision authority. The bidding companies received comparative assessment regarding technical capability, previous project portfolio, cost structure, and implementation timeline. The finalist selection incorporated parental input regarding interpersonal comfort, alongside technical qualification assessment, recognizing daily interaction requirements during implementation period. This inclusive approach maintained appropriate authority recognition while demonstrating occupant consideration beyond technical permission requirement. Temporary accommodation arrangements during critical construction phases presented opportunity for interesting role reversal regarding hosting responsibility. My San Francisco residence, contemporary condominium with guest accommodation capacity, provided suitable location for parental residence during 2-week kitchen renovation period. This arrangement created unprecedented situation. Parents visiting child's established residence for extended duration, rather than traditional visitation direction. Your space is quite impressive, my mother acknowledged upon arrival, observing contemporary design elements alongside functional efficiency within limited urban footprint. The location amenities provide interesting contrast with Westwood residential patterns. The observation contained genuine appreciation alongside subtle comparison regarding lifestyle variation between established professional environment and traditional suburban context. The 2-week cohabitation period provided unique perspective, opportunity regarding daily routine patterns and interaction approaches within neutral territory beyond historical family environment. The professional demands during this hosting period created interesting navigation requirement balancing work responsibilities alongside visitor accommodation. My director position involved periodic emergency response requirement alongside scheduled meeting obligations, creating occasional prioritization challenges during parental visitation. These situations necessitated direct communication regarding temporary unavailability during critical professional engagement, boundary establishment that might have presented difficulty within traditional family dynamic, but received reasonable accommodation within current relationship evolution. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to subscribe. And turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.